So you're here. Good. I was hoping for company. You see, I've got stories, dark ones, chilling ones, the kind that keep you up at night. Mythical creatures, curses, horrors you can't escape. Shall we begin? Don't worry, I won't bite. Much.
Who was Wu Zetian? In all of Chinese history, only one woman ever seized the throne. Not as a consort, not as a dowager, but as an emperor in her own right. Her name, Wu Zetian. Her rise to power was a tale of ambition, cunning, bloodshed, and mystery. Born into a relatively modest official's family, Wu Zetian used her intelligence and ruthless political skills to climb the ranks. She started as a concubine of Emperor Taizong, later became the empress of his son, Emperor Gaozong, and finally seized power for herself, deposing her own son and establishing the Wuzhou dynasty. For 50 years, she ruled with an iron grip, strengthening China, but also surrounding herself with dark and chilling legends. She believed she was chosen by the heavens, and some say she used mysterious methods to maintain control, manipulating celestial omens, experimenting with alchemy, and even using human skin to write imperial decrees. Was she a brilliant ruler ahead of her time, or a tyrant shrouded in blood and secrecy? Today, we unveil the three most mysterious and terrifying secrets of Wu Zetian. Chang'an, 690 AD, a night of ominous signs. Over the imperial capital, the night was unnaturally still. Then, a gust of wind. Heavy clouds twisted and churned, like restless spirits. The silver moon? Gone. In its place, a massive blood-red eye stared down at the world below. The stars, usually fixed in their celestial patterns, seemed to flicker and drift aimlessly, as if lost. The stars are in chaos. The mandate of heaven is shifting. In the streets of Chang'an, panic spread like wildfire. People knelt on the ground, pressing their hands together in anxious prayers. An old man, his face ghostly pale, pointed a trembling finger at the sky. A blood moon. This has only ever appeared before the fall of a dynasty. Is the empire about to change hands? Fear gripped the city, but inside the magnificent halls of Daming Palace, Wu Zetian sat calmly on her phoenix throne, her golden robes shimmering under the flickering lantern light. Before her knelt a group of imperial astrologers, their foreheads pressed to the cold floor. One of them, her most trusted advisor, Shui Huaiyi, spoke with quiet confidence. "Your Majesty," he murmured with a knowing smile, "the heavens have aligned. Now is the perfect time to change fate." Wu Zetian remained silent, lightly tapping her fingers against the carved armrest of her throne. Her gaze was sharp, calculating. Shui Huaiyi's voice grew more fervent, almost breathless. "The people are already whispering about the blood moon. They are terrified. If your Majesty acts now, if you proclaim yourself emperor, change the name of the dynasty, they will have no choice but to believe you are heaven's chosen ruler." At last, Wu Zetian rose from her seat. Her silken robes flowed like liquid gold as she stepped toward the palace doors. She gazed up at the crimson moon, her lips curling into the faintest of smiles. "Tomorrow, I will ascend the throne. The Tang dynasty ends. The Zhou dynasty begins." Behind her, Shui Huaiyi bowed deeply. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. The will of the heavens is yours to command." But what no one outside the palace knew was that this celestial omen was no divine decree. It was an elaborate deception, crafted by human hands. The secret of controlling the heavens, how Wu Zetian fooled an empire. For centuries, the Chinese people believed that natural phenomena, eclipses, comets, and star alignments, were messages from the gods. But Wu Zetian understood a truth far more terrifying. The heavens could be manipulated. She secretly gathered China's most skilled Taoist priests, astrologers, and engineers, forming an elite team known as the Celestial Bureau. Their job? To fabricate divine omens that reinforced her rule. Long before the blood moon appeared, her spies spread rumors of an impending celestial sign. that a great change was coming. Her envoys scoured the empire for so-called miracles: a two-headed calf, a tree that bloomed in winter, a boulder that split in half, resembling a dragon. By the time the red moon truly appeared, the people were already conditioned to believe it was a sign from heaven. In Luoyang, Wu Zetian ordered the construction of a secret observatory, a giant mirrored platform designed to reflect light in unnatural ways, making stars appear to shift in the sky. Outside Chang'an, her alchemists burned phosphorus and sulfur, creating eerie, glowing clouds that flickered in the night, making it seem as if the heavens were changing. When the people looked up at the sky that night, they saw exactly what she wanted them to see. And the next morning, when she declared herself Emperor of Zhou, no one questioned it. Wu Zetian had rewritten fate itself. Daming Palace. Midnight, the Imperial Alchemy Chamber. Deep within the forbidden chambers of the palace, a massive cauldron roared with flames, casting flickering shadows on the cold stone walls. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning herbs and metal, and a sickly sweet fragrance clung to the room. A group of alchemists huddled around the cauldron, their brows slick with sweat. The golden liquid inside bubbled violently, like molten sunlight trapped in a pot. "Quickly, add the catalyst," one of the elder Taoist alchemists barked. A frail young palace maid was being restrained beside the cauldron, her eyes wide with horror. "No, please don't," she sobbed, struggling desperately, but the hands holding her were firm. Without hesitation, a eunuch sliced her wrist open, and her blood dripped into the boiling elixir. The mixture instantly surged, turning a brilliant shade of blue, releasing an eerie, ghostly smoke. The girl's sobs faded. She slumped forward, her body going still, her lifeblood now part of the Empress's elixir. In a distant chamber, Wu Zetian watched in silence. Her face was calm, emotionless, as if watching a mundane ritual rather than a human sacrifice. "Is it ready?" she finally asked. A trembling alchemist stepped forward, offering her a small jade bottle. Inside were 3 glistening golden pills. She opened the vial, sniffed it lightly, and a faint smile played on her lips. "Excellent." She lifted the golden pill to her lips, pausing for just a moment. Then, she swallowed. Wu Zetian's quest for eternal life, fact or myth? History records that Wu Zetian lived to the astonishing age of 82, a rare feat for rulers of that era. Some say she discovered the secret to immortality. But what was in her so-called elixir of life, the blood of virgins, believed to purify the elixir and grant youthful vitality? Crushed human bones, called the 9 transformations bone powder, thought to strengthen the body. Gold mercury, and cinnabar. But these were highly toxic and could slowly poison the mind and body. Many of her maids and concubines mysteriously perished after taking the elixir, their bodies turning stiff and discolored, as if petrified. Did Wu Zetian truly extend her life? Or was she simply poisoning herself with her own alchemical experiments? Candlelight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the crimson silk drapes. The air in the chamber was thick with an iron-scented musk, an unmistakable hint of blood lingering beneath the layers of incense. In a secluded corner of the grand palace, a figure hunched over a writing desk, his fingers stained with ink. Except the ink was not entirely black. A subtle red hue bled through the brushstrokes, like the whispers of fresh blood. "Eunuch, the materials are ready," a man in black robes murmured, his voice hushed, and his gaze deliberately avoiding the desk's surface. Spread out across the desk lay a perfectly smooth, parchment-like sheet. But it was no ordinary paper. It was a full, unblemished sheet of human skin. The eunuch at the desk blew softly on the still wet ink, ensuring the imperial decree was set. He leaned in and read aloud. "Wei Yuanzhong is guilty of treason. His crimes are unforgivable. By imperial decree, he shall be punished accordingly, to serve as a warning to others." He folded the document carefully and turned toward the far corner of the room. There, slumped against the wall, was a freshly flayed corpse. The skin had been stripped clean, leaving behind a raw, crimson horror. Blood still oozed from the gaping wound where flesh had once covered bone. The air was suffocating, thick with decay. Just hours before, this had been Wei Yuanzhang, a high-ranking chancellor of the Tang dynasty. Wei Yuanzhang was a staunch loyalist of the Tang dynasty. He had openly opposed Wu Zetian's rule, arguing that a woman should not sit on the imperial throne. He believed he was defending tradition and the legitimacy of the Tang royal bloodline. But to Wu Zetian, he was a dangerous threat, a man whose words could inspire rebellion. In 692 AD, he was accused of treason and arrested. That night, in the cold dungeons of the Ministry of Justice, a group of men in black robes stood around him. Their expressions were devoid of emotion. "Chancellor Wei," one of them spoke in a hollow tone, "Her Majesty has ordered that you see the evidence of your crimes." Wei Yuanzhang, bruised and bound, lifted his head. His once dignified face was now streaked with blood, his breath ragged. Before him lay a sheet of vellum, not parchment, something more grotesque. Its faintly pink hue, its unnatural smoothness, the way it seemed almost translucent in the dim light. It was human skin. And scrawled across it, in deep red ink, was his own confession. He felt his stomach drop. This isn't real." The black-robed man smiled, a cruel, knowing smile. He gently ran his fingers over the surface of the document and whispered, "Chancellor Wei, this is your handwriting." Realization crashed into him like a thunderbolt. He was going to die here. And worse, his very skin would be used as a warning to others. "You're mad, all of you." Wei Yuanzhang thrashed, his voice raw with fury and horror. But the hands on him tightened. A blade glinted in the candlelight. Then, silence. By morning, he was nothing but a lifeless shell. The following day, in the grand throne room of Daming Palace, Wu Zetian sat upon her golden throne, her expression unreadable. A eunuch approached, holding the decree. The ink had dried, the words were clear. But the parchment, software pale, still warm. He knelt and presented it to her. She took the edict in her hands, examining it with a small, unreadable smile. "Good. Have it sent to the court and read aloud." That afternoon, ministers and officials gathered in the imperial court, their heads bowed. The decree was unrolled before them and read in an unwavering voice. The moment the words finished, the room was silent. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe too loudly. They all understood the message. Dissent meant death. Resistance meant erasure. From that moment on, no one in court ever spoke against the Empress again. Historians have debated whether Wu Zetian truly ordered human skin to be used for imperial edicts. There is no direct evidence in official records, but numerous ministers vanished mysteriously during her reign. Many were executed for treason, yet their bodies were never found. The fear of opposing her was so great that her rule was nearly uncontested. Did she actually issue edicts written on human skin, or was the legend simply a terrifying myth born from the sheer brutality of her rule? Regardless, one thing is clear. She ruled with absolute fear, ensuring that even the thought of betrayal was enough to send shivers down the spines of her enemies. Wu Zetian was no ordinary ruler. She was a force of nature. 705 AD. Wu Zetian's last night. A bitter wind howled outside the towering walls of Daming Palace. The once mighty empress lay on her bed, her breath shallow, her once piercing eyes now dulled by age. At over 80 years old, Wu Zetian had outlived almost all of her enemies, but even she could not escape time. The empire she built would soon fall back into the hands of the Tang royal family. Tomorrow, she would be forced to abdicate. She slowly reached for a small stone tablet beside her bed. It was a miniature model of her future tombstone, But unlike the elaborate gravestones of past emperors, this one had no words. It was completely blank. Her fingers brushed over the smooth, empty stone. No name, no words, nothing. She exhaled softly, then whispered, "Let history decide." The next morning, Wu Zetian was stripped of her imperial title. She was no longer Emperor of Zhou. She was simply Empress Dowager Zetian, a title she had not held for decades. Days later, she died quietly. Wu Zetian was buried in Qianling tomb alongside her former husband, Emperor Gaozong. But unlike any other emperor in history, her tombstone was left completely blank. No name, no achievements, no epitaph. Why? Some theories suggest she refused to let others define her legacy. She believed history itself would decide her worth. She planned to return. Some say she believed in reincarnation and expected to be reborn to rule again. She was hiding a secret. Some historians suspect her tomb may contain something hidden from the world. But the most chilling part? Qianling tomb remains unopened to this day. For over 1,300 years, no one has successfully entered her burial chamber. Qing dynasty tomb raiders tried, but mysteriously died before succeeding. In the 1960s, an excavation attempt was planned, until a sudden earthquake forced them to stop. Modern scans suggest the tomb is full of intricate traps and secret passageways. Did Wu Zetian take her final secrets to the grave? Or is something inside still waiting to be discovered? Wu Zetian ruled with intelligence, cruelty, and fear. She manipulated heavenly omens to control the people. She pursued forbidden alchemy in her quest for immortality. She silenced her enemies with terror and brutality. To this day, her greatest mysteries remain unsolved. Was she a brilliant leader or a ruthless tyrant? Did she find the secret to eternal life? And what lies hidden inside her tomb? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget, history is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered.